All right, welcome everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. The following seminar is brought to you by nonprofit organization I Explore. I am honored to be introducing our seminar presenter today, Emily, who will be telling us all about the not so boring side of economics. So Emily, take it away.
Okay, so first off, I would like to thank you guys so much for coming to this seminar today, because I know that economics might sound like a really boring topic to talk about. So once again, thank you guys for showing up. So I know that in my old point of view, economics was definitely one of the most boring subjects I can think of. And I guess that was because I felt like it's so far away from me, like things like international trade and currencies and all that kind of stuff. But I recently just started getting into economics, and I realized how it actually connects to our everyday life in countless ways. And you can even say that everything is economics. So this is why I'm doing this seminar today, to hopefully change the boring and lifelessness impression economics gives you guys. So let's get started. Okay, so we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so, right, we can go to the next slide. Okay, thank you. So I chose 4 topics that I personally find really interesting to talk about to you guys. So the first one being economic barometers, and the second one utility. The third one is opportunity cost, and the fourth one would be sunk cost. All right, so we can move on. Okay, thank you. So first, let's go big. Economic barometers are used to judge the overall health and strength of an economy. So as you can see from my first bullet here, so countries would very much like to know the situation of both their own economy and that of others for numerous reasons. So for example, international trade, so whether they should continue trading with a trading partner, or how much goods and services should they export or import. So the second usage of economic barometers is to predict the overall future trend of an economy. So is the economy going into a recession, which is basically a widespread economic decline that can last for months, or is the economy moving on into a economic recovery? So this is another important thing a country would like to know in order to adjust their monetary and fiscal policies to prepare the economy for future events. Okay, so now let's move on to economic barometers. So you guys can see that from the third bullet point here, that economic barometers and economic indicators have similar applications. Okay, so but economic indicators are used in a more broken down areas of an economy rather than an economy as a whole. Okay, so different areas in the market use different indicators. So we have an indicator for inflation, we have another indicator for economic growth, and etc. So different fields in the market have different indicators that perform best in that specific area. So the 3 most common indicators that you guys have probably heard of is, for one, the GDP, so the gross domestic product. The second one being the stock market, so your parents would be more familiar with this one. And the third one being employment. Okay, but today we're not going to be talking about those 3 indicators. So although they are very important and fundamental, they're kind of well, today we're going to be talking about a more interesting one. Okay, so we can go to the next slide. Thank you. So the Mama Noodle Index. So don't just freak out when you see the word index. It's actually not that complicated. So this is one of the most bizarre indicators to emerge in recent years. So it's actually from Thailand. And Mama Noodles is one of the biggest instant noodle companies in Thailand. So if you look at the first bullet point here, it's basically how it works. So it says tighten your belt, spend less on food. So what it actually means is that when people in Thailand have less purchasing power, or basically when they have less income, so when they don't have enough money, on a daily basis. So, well, you will still need to eat if you don't have money. So people go after the cheapest things that can really satisfy their body. So, so in this case, the cheapest thing that people go after for food is instant noodles. So I believe everyone here has had instant noodles before. They're cheap and they taste good. Okay. So Mama Noodles, as the biggest instant noodle company in Thailand, sells more packages of instant noodles during recessions and depressions. So like when people are relatively poor. So if you recall how I said that economic recessions are when there is a widespread economic decline. So that is when people have less income, so they have less purchasing power. So they tend to buy cheaper food. So for example, instant noodles in our case. So so when the economy in Thailand is bad, the sales of Mama noodles go up and vice versa. So if you see the sales of Mama noodles go up, you can infer that the economy is not as good as before in Thailand. Okay, so I guess what I personally really like about this indicator is that it really shows us how like our everyday purchasing behaviors can really reflect the economic status of an entire economy. So I guess I find that pretty amazing. And this is just one of the many examples that how we all connect to our economy as consumers of goods and services. Although we might not actually realize it when we go out and buy food every day. Okay, so we can move on. Right, thank you. So the next topic would be utility. Okay, so utility basically describes the evaluation someone makes on something they've experienced. So utility is similar to satisfaction or pleasure or happiness, you could say. So for example, if you like watching TV better than doing homework, economics, you could say that the utility you get from watching TV is greater than the utility you get from doing homework. Okay, so so this is what you actually do when you decide between things in real life. So you consider the utility each of those things brings you, and you do the thing that maximizes your utility. So we all have the incentive to maximize our utility in real life when we are making decisions. Okay, so well, if we go back to the watching TV versus doing homework example, or if you see on the PowerPoint, I have like a switch and well, a novel, maybe you could say. So for example, if reading that novel brings you more utility than going on your switch, then you would read that novel because it maximizes your utility. Okay, so this is pretty simple. So utility links back to our revealed preferences. So revealed preferences are basically your preferences that on things that are real through your behaviors. Okay, so for example, the fact that someone chose to watch a movie instead of going to a concert, for example, reveals the fact that that person prefers going to a movie than going to a concert. Okay. So another really fun example of revealed preferences that hopefully you guys can all relate to. So I pulled up this example because like this happens to me a lot. Okay, so suppose you have one day of holiday and you are choosing between watching TV and reading a Russian novel. Okay, so two random things to choose out of. And then at the end of the day, you realize that you spent your whole day watching TV. So, and you think to yourself, or maybe you tell a friend, I feel like I really, really, really wanted to read that Russian novel, and I feel like I wanted to do that more than watching TV, but for some reason, I just sat there and watched TV for the whole day. Well, then now economists would now wonder if you've been completely honest with yourself, because your real preferences obviously tell us that you prefer watching TV from reading that Russian novel, okay? As you guys can see at the bottom of this page, I put a star next to diminishing marginal utility. So this is a very important concept to understand, especially the word marginal. So you could even say that in economics, nearly everything is at the margin, okay? So what diminishing marginal utility basically means is that the utility you get from consuming a product decreases with every additional unit of that product consumed. Okay, so I know this might sound a bit confusing. Don't worry, I have a really everyday example for you guys again. So if you look at that massive bowl of ice cream to the right there, now picture yourself in a really hot summer's day, and you just have this massive bowl of ice cream in front of you. Okay, say you have a unlimited supply of ice cream. Okay, so you can have as much as you want. It's boiling hot and you have that bowl of ice cream, so everything's great. You take a first massive scoop of ice cream. You would think it tastes amazing, right? You would probably go like, oh my gosh, this is one of the best things I've had in my whole entire life. Okay, so you continue on. You take a second massive scoop. So this second scoop, it would still taste nice. So you continue on. So you continue on to your third scoop. And starting from your third scoop, you might realize that the ice cream somehow tastes not as good as before, but it's still nice. You still like it, so you continue on. So eventually, when you continue on to, let's say, the 30th massive scoop of ice cream, you're gonna feel like you've had too much sugar, and you're gonna feel like you're gonna puke. Okay, so that is when you stop eating. So that is basically diminishing marginal utility. So the more ice cream you have, the less pleasure that ice cream brings you, and eventually your marginal utility is going to be zero. So when consuming an additional scoop of ice cream brings you absolutely no pleasure, then your marginal utility would equal zero. So what's interesting about marginal utility is that it can actually be a negative number. Okay, so imagine you've had enough ice cream already and you can't possibly have any more, but someone next to you, say your friend, is still pressuring you to eat more ice cream. So now with every additional scoop of ice cream you have, you're gonna feel worse and worse, and eventually you're gonna get sick. So that is when your marginal utility equals actually a negative number. Okay, so this also relates to our really everyday life. So you can actually use this to explain decisions you make on a daily basis. So, for example, when you are really, really thirsty and you decide to drink water, well, maybe you can have up to 2 glasses of water, say, and then you just stop drinking. So why did you stop? Well, you could just say, using everyday language, well, I don't want any more water. Okay, so, well, in economics, you could say, well, drinking more water brings me absolutely no utility, and my marginal utility for drinking an additional glass of water is 0, or can even be a negative number. So that is why we actually stop. Okay, so we can move on. Okay, thank you. So now we are on to our opportunity cost. So this is another really important fundamental aspect of economics. So opportunity cost is basically your best alternative given up. Okay, so opportunity cost equals the value of other goods that you must give up in order to obtain one good. Okay, so for example, if you spend time watching TV, you can't spend that time reading your Russian novel. Okay, so the opportunity cost of you watching TV is reading your Russian novel. Okay, so watching TV, it costs you, well, it costs you time, it probably costs you electricity, but more importantly, it costs you the opportunity to read your Russian novel. Okay. Well, so another example right here would be the ice cream and donuts to the right of the slide. Okay, so say you can only buy ice cream. You can only either buy ice cream or donuts, so you have to choose between the two. And so say you choose to buy ice cream. Okay, so then your opportunity cost for buying ice cream would be buying donuts, because since you bought ice cream, you can't buy donuts at the same time. Okay, so just say suppose you have a limited amount of money. Okay, so comparing opportunity cost helps us decide between trade-offs. So trade-offs are basically all the alternatives like you have. So we can actually go back to our one day of a holiday example. So we used in our last topic for utility. So if you have one day of holiday and you can do anything, absolutely anything anything you want. Sorry. So you can watch TV. You can read, or you can go on your Switch. You can travel to France. I don't know. You can do anything. You can buy 100 cans of tomato soup, and dump it all in your tub and bathe in tomato soup. You can do anything. So those things, all of those things you can do are basically your trade-offs. Okay, so and when you decide between trade-offs, you would choose the one that has the least opportunity cost. So opportunity cost is a cost. So when you're deciding to do something, you would obviously want to choose the one that costs you the least. So in terms of like actual money, or in terms of opportunity cost. Okay, so now you might better understand why your friend might refuse your invitation to hang out over the weekend. So I'm guessing that this happened to all of you guys. So it's Friday, you invited a friend to hang out over the weekend at your house, and then for some reason your friend refused. So that makes you very sad, and you can't understand why your friend refused. Well, we can actually explain this with economics, okay? So what basically happened there is that you guys have different opportunity costs, okay? So your opportunity cost might only be watching TV, okay? So, but your friend's opportunity cost might be adopting a cat or a puppy, okay? So whatever. So their opportunity cost is greater than your opportunity cost. So that is basically why they refuse. And so they would only agree to hang out with you. So after comparing all of the trade-offs they have, and then after they decide that hanging out with you actually gives them the least opportunity cost, and actually hanging out with you can maximize their utility. So only then will they agree to hang out with you. So next time your friend agrees to hang out with you right away, you should really feel flattered. Okay. All right. So that's pretty much it for opportunity cost. So we can move on to our final topic for today, which is sunk cost. So sunk cost is really it's just really interesting for me, because it really links to our everyday life without us even noticing. Okay, sunk cost is basically a cost that has already taken place and cannot be recovered. Okay, so that's pretty simple. So as an example, if you look at the picture of ice cream on the upper right hand corner, I know I've been using ice cream as an examples a lot. I just really like ice cream. Okay, So if you look at that ice cream example, say you bought an ice cream from a shop, and then you took a bite of that ice cream, and then you realized you don't like that flavor. Okay, so well then now the money you used to buy your ice cream would be a sunk cost because you can't possibly get that money back. Well, unless that shop accepts returns, which is not really likely going to happen. Okay. So when we talk about sunk cost, we tend to talk about how people go from a sunk cost dilemma into a sunk cost fallacy. So a sunk cost dilemma is basically when someone is deciding whether to proceed or continue on after already making a investment or payment. And the sunk cost fallacy is the continuance of a particular behavior or so because they already made a payment or investment. So don't get overwhelmed just yet. So I have an example for you guys that you guys can all hopefully relate to. Okay, so rebuild this scenario in your head. So say you spent $100 on a movie ticket. Well, I know that's a bit too much for a movie ticket, but just suppose. Okay, so suppose you spent $100 on a movie ticket. And so you go to the cinema, you go to the movie, and 5 minutes into that movie, you realize this movie sucks. And you get absolutely no pleasure or utility, you could say, from watching the movie. So what do? Do you leave that movie, or do you just sit there and painfully finish the movie? Well, you would probably say, I would definitely leave, no doubt about it. But if you really put yourself into this situation, you just spent $100 on this movie ticket. So would you still leave? Okay, so this is your sunk cost dilemma. You're deciding whether I should leave or not. And and the reason you have the incentive to stay is because you just spent $100 buying that movie ticket. Okay, so that's what's holding you back. So now if you decide to continue on and sit there and finish that movie, this is when you fall into the sunk cost fallacy. Okay, so you only decided to stay there and keep watching the movie because you spent $100 on it. So it brings you absolutely no pleasure or absolutely no utility or absolutely no satisfaction from watching that movie, but you still decided to keep watching it because you spent $100 on a movie ticket. Okay, so this is actually you should, so economists would say you should actually just leave. So why is that? And why did you decide to stay there when watching that movie is really painful for you? Okay, so economists believe there are 3 reasons why people tend to fall into the sunk cost fallacy. Okay, so first, it is really crucial that we understand that our sunk cost shouldn't be considered while we are making decisions for the future. Because sunk cost is a cost that already happened and you can't get it back. So it doesn't matter what you do in the future, you can't get it back anyways. So it shouldn't be considered while you're making decisions. Okay, so sunk cost should be irrelevant to the future decision making. So, but many people have trouble understanding this. So, so they consider sunk cost when they make decisions for the future. So, as you probably did when you decided to sit there and finish the movie. So that is the first reason why people tend to fall into the sunk cost fallacy. And it's not just you, it's many people fall into that. So on a daily basis. So either on really little things for like our examples, or whether to stay or leave, or on big things. So for example, when people invest in the stock market and their stock is failing them, but they still decide to keep holding on to it because they already spent so much money on that particular stock. Okay, so that is when big people, so famous people, also fall into the sunk cost fallacy. Okay, so our second reason why people tend to fall into the sunk cost fallacy is because we tend to underestimate our opportunity cost. So see how this actually links back to our opportunity cost. So people tend to underestimate opportunity cost when opportunity cost isn't in the form of money. Okay, so think about it. What could you do if you leave that terrible movie? You could go to a really nice restaurant and you can have some really nice food, or you could go on your Switch for a couple of hours. You can do a lot of things that actually brings you pleasure. Um, so by stubbornly continuing watching that really terrible movie, you severely underestimated your opportunity cost, which in our case right here is time. By paying way too much attention to your sunk cost, which should actually be ignored. So that going back to our first reason for why people tend to fall into the sunk cost fallacy, there are first bullet point there in red. Okay, so our last reason why people tend to fall into the sunk cost fallacy is because they tend to neglect fungibility. So this isn't really actually relevant to this particular example we have here, but I'll mention anyway. So ignoring fungibility. So if something is fungible, it means that that thing can easily be replaced. So a perfect example for fungibility would be money. Okay, so $1 would always be $1. So no matter if it's found in the streets, or if it's given to you from a friend, or if it's 5 20-cent coins in your pocket, or the number that shows up on your online bank account. So okay, so they're all $1. So they all have the same value. So it might seem really obvious to you how money is fungible, but people tend to forget this, and they ignore the fungibility of money in real life. So and this leads to irrational behaviors, and it leads to people making really bizarre decisions. Okay, so for example, you would probably treat $25 you earned from, let's say, doing housework, from $25 you picked up in the streets. Okay, so that $25 you earned from doing housework, you actually did work on it, and it was hard for you to get it. Okay, so you probably worked hard to get that $25 from doing housework, but as for the $25 you found in the streets, well, you just found it. It was an easy money. Okay, so you would probably treat the $25 you earned more carefully and more thoughtfully than the $25 you picked up in the streets. So for the $25 you earned from doing housework, you might really carefully plan on how you spend it. But for the $25 you picked up in the streets, you would probably just spend it right away without thinking. Okay, so this is actually really weird in the eyes of economists, because the two $25, they both have the same value, but the situation or context in which the money is attained actually takes over the rational mind, and it disturbs your mind when you're making decisions on how to spend that money. Okay, so yeah, that is all three main reasons why people tend to go from the sunk cost dilemma into the sunk cost fallacy. Okay, so next time you face a really decision like this, so the next time you are in a sunk cost dilemma, actually really consider your opportunity costs, okay? So for continuing to do something because you already made a payment. And so hopefully you're gonna behave more rationally in the eyes of economists. All right, so that is actually all I have for today. I know this is a really short seminar compared to other seminars we give, so our bio seminars and that kind of stuff. But I guess I really don't want to keep you guys for too long because so I guess I really don't want to keep you guys too long and take up too much of your time. So talking about economics, but hopefully you guys have a better understanding of the basics of economics, and hopefully you guys are picking up a little bit of interest on economics after this seminar. Okay, so does anyone have any questions? So, well, when I'm preparing for the seminar, I wasn't really expecting for any questions, but so if there are questions, you can ask him right now.
Yep, so if you have any questions, just drop them down in the chat below and I will read it off for you. So we only have one question right now, but it's a really long question, so just bear with me.
Okay.
So I want to be a doctor someday, and I watched a video that said going to medical school has a huge opportunity cost because while I'm in medical school for 4 years, others are making money. Can you explain the concept of opportunity cost in that context, please?
So the opportunity cost in going to medical school?
Yes.
Okay. So well, your opportunity cost for going to medical school, well, in this particular example, would obviously be so going into another occupation. So how the video mentioned that when you're spending years and years of time in medical school, your other friends might already making money and starting their own business. So your opportunity cost for going into medical school would be going into another occupation and making money in different ways. But again, this real life example is kind of different. So to my little examples that I put in my presentation, because so although the process of going to medical school for years and years might cost you a lot opportunity cost, so you can use that time you used in medical school for countless of things really. But then when you come out of a medical school, you might start making a lot of money right away. So again, that opportunity cost kind of pays off. So if you get what I mean. But again, so if you consider, so like opportunity cost is a cost, but then you can consider opportunity cost with utility because utility is something you get. And then opportunity cost is something you give away, okay? So if you think your utility from going to medical school and perhaps helping patients in the future, or just simply learning about medical stuff brings you like, so the utility you get from all that is greater than the opportunity cost for you going to medical school, then, well, you should definitely still choose medical school. So like, even though it might cost you a great opportunity cost, but really in real life, I think you need to compare it with your utility. And so yeah, and so people are really complex animals. Okay, so we have really complex minds and thoughts on different stuff. So, but going back to the opportunity cost thing here, your opportunity cost, well, you could probably say that the longer the time you spend on something, the greater your opportunity cost. I suppose you could say that, but again, so I guess in your medical school, this case, so in the case of medical school, your opportunity cost might pay off, and also, so instead of other than considering money, you can also consider like your personal preferences on this. So like your life goals and your life so your achievements you wish to achieve in life. So for people that simply just want to be a good doctor, then the opportunity cost for going to medical school might be really little, because this is what they want. So if they don't go to medical school, they might not even be performing as well in society. So for people who really do want to go to so for people who really do want this occupation, then going to medical school would have a relatively lower opportunity cost for them. But for people who are like forced into going to medical school by their parents, for example, then their opportunity cost might be massive. Okay, so they might want to use their time in medical school for so many different stuff that they might be actually good at. Okay, so I hope that answered your question.
All right, thank you so much for that answer. I think you probably covered everything to be said on that topic. And I don't think we have any more questions. If you do have any more questions, just make scan the QR code that is on the next slide. Hang on, I'll go to the next slide.
Okay.
All right, so this right here, there's a QR code. And if you have any questions or would like to contact iExplore Club, you can just scan this right here. And yeah, and you will be able to get in touch with us. So just right now, we got another question. The question is, if you are doing something you enjoy, like going to a park, but in that time you could finish studying for a test, is that still called an opportunity cost?
Yes, okay. So essentially everything you do has a opportunity cost. So this is actually a great example. So thank you so much for asking. So going to a park actually costs you the opportunity to study. So so everything has an opportunity cost, just as I said. So when you choose to come to this seminar, your opportunity cost might be relaxing or reading a book and that kind of stuff. So yeah, that would definitely be an example of an opportunity cost.
All right, thank you so much. I hope that answered your question. And do we have any more questions? Because we have some time for Q&A. All right, so I don't see anything popping up for now. And again, just make sure that you follow us on our Instagram and our YouTube channel and everything. So all of our social media accounts are linked right here on the screen. And just make sure to follow us. And yeah, check out our YouTube channel, because all of our seminars are recorded and edited on there. So YouTube channel, we have finished edited recordings of seminars. So those will be pretty fun to watch. And we have all different kinds of topics on biology and entertainment and storytelling. So we have tons of different things for you to check out. And just finally, I want to thank everyone for coming today, and big thank you for Emily for holding this seminar. I really like how you use down-to-earth examples like mama noodles and the ice cream to explain complicated economics things. And those really just showed us how economics is not something that is really apart from us. It's something that is kind of intertwined with our everyday lives. It's just a part of every decision we make. So it's not something that is far away and only matters to economists. So really, thank you really much for this awesome seminar, and I hope everyone enjoyed it. I definitely learned a lot. So again, thank you for everyone for coming, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day today.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.